In the fall of 1941, the German war machine looks like it was absolutely unstoppable. But as it closed in on the city of Kiev, it was about to score a victory so huge and so costly, it would actually plant the seeds of its own destruction. We're going to break down the hidden story of the Wehrmacht's greatest and maybe its most disastrous triumph. So, picture this. It's September 1941. For 11 straight weeks, the German Wehrmacht has just been blasting its way deep into the Soviet Union. In the north, Leningrad is completely surrounded, and in the south, the ancient city of Kiev is right on the edge of a massive, massive encirclement. To anyone watching from the outside, the German army looked invincible. But was it really? I mean, on the surface, yeah, it's a story of German victory after victory. But what we're going to do is look right underneath that surface, because the truth is, the Wehrmacht was already starting to crack under the incredible strain of this invasion. And this gets us to the hidden crisis of the German army. You see, while they were winning all these spectacular battles, they were actually losing the much bigger war, the war of attrition against the sheer size of Russia and the endless number of its soldiers. I mean, the human cost was just staggering. By the end of September, an official German report would put their own casualties at over 500,000 men. Think about that. Dozens of their divisions were thousands of soldiers under strength. This was a level of bloodletting they just could not sustain. And it wasn't just the men they were losing. The Wehrmacht had lost almost 1,500 tanks and artillery pieces. That's a staggering one-third of the entire force they kicked off the invasion with. Their legendary panzer divisions were being bled completely white. And this chart, wow, it really shows you the logistical nightmare they were facing. Less than half, only 47% of their tanks were even operational. And what's wild is that the problem was made worse by Hitler himself. He was so convinced the campaign would be over quickly that he ordered all the new tanks being produced to be held back, not to reinforce the front, but to form brand new divisions for later. So out of over 800 new tanks built, only 96 were actually sent as replacements. The tip of the spear was being blunted by its own leadership. Okay, so now let's shift our focus up north, because in the north, this crisis was really coming to a head, as one of the most brutal sieges in all of human history was just getting started, trapping millions of people inside an iron ring. This timeline just shows how fast everything went down. On September 8th, the siege is officially on. The very next day, the Germans launched their assault on the city itself. By the 14th, with key defenses crumbling, the situation is so desperate that the Soviet High Command sends in their most ruthless fixer, General Georgy Zhukov, to take personal command. But here's where that strategic weakness we talked about comes back to bite the Germans. Even as they're trying to take Leningrad, Hitler orders their main armored force, the Panzer Corps, to be pulled away to get ready for the big push on Moscow. This forced the German commander, General Lieb, to try and rush a final desperate assault before he lost his best troops. The Soviets, though, they were throwing absolutely everything they had into defending the city. We're talking almost 500,000 regular soldiers, plus 3 entire divisions of civilian militia. And, crucially, the Soviet Baltic fleet was trapped in the harbor, so they just turned their massive naval guns inland and started pounding the Germans, firing almost 10,000 heavy shells in September alone. And with Zhukov's arrival came pure, brutal resolve. He immediately issued a no-step-back order. Any soldier who retreated would be shot on the spot. The message could not have been clearer. Leningrad would hold, or it would become a massive graveyard. All right, now let's head south to the absolute catastrophe unfolding around the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. This right here was about to become the Wehrmacht's single greatest victory of the entire war. Now, from a military perspective, the Soviets should have retreated from Kiev. Every single one of their generals told Stalin to pull the southwestern front back, but he said no. And this was a purely political decision. Stalin desperately needed to show his new allies, America and Britain, that the Red Army wasn't about to collapse. He had to hold Kiev as a symbol of Soviet resistance. And because Stalin refused to let them retreat, the Germans saw a golden opportunity for a classic pincer movement. You know, where you attack an enemy on both sides at once. Guderian's panzers raced down from the north, while Kleist's panzers punched up from a river crossing in the south. The whole goal was to meet in the middle, behind the Soviet armies, and trap them all. But the whole German plan almost came crashing down. Guderian's lead unit, the 3rd Panzer Division, pushed so hard and so fast that it completely ran out of gas. They were stuck deep in enemy territory, totally isolated, and just a sitting duck for a counterattack. And then, What can you call it but pure dumb luck? Guderian's forces just stumbled upon and captured a massive, fully stocked Soviet supply depot at a town called Romny. It had all the fuel they needed and then some. This one incredible stroke of fortune single-handedly saved the entire offensive and let the German pincer keep closing. So, with the Germans refueled and Kleist's army breaking through in the south, the trap was snapping shut. For the Soviet commander, Kirponos, and the hundreds of thousands of men with him, the situation was absolutely hopeless. There were no reserves left to help them. They were completely and utterly doomed. So, what was the result of this colossal struggle? Well, Germany had won its greatest victory of the war, for sure. But when you look at the aftermath, the picture gets a lot more complicated. You see, the Wehrmacht got their massive victory, but they were now dangerously overstretched, and their best panzer divisions were just wrecked. On the other side, the Red Army suffered a defeat of historic proportions, but it was still standing. Both armies were totally exhausted. They had burned through all their offensive strength just to get to this point. And this leads to an amazing metaphor from our source material. The war was turning into a fight between two punch-drunk boxers, just swaying on their feet, trading heavy blows, but neither one had the strength left to land that final knockout punch. The war of lightning attacks was over. The brutal war of attrition had truly begun. The encirclement at Kiev was complete, but the fight to actually destroy the hundreds of thousands of trapped soldiers was just beginning. Stalin's refusal to retreat had set the stage for one of the worst military disasters in all of history. And the huge question now was, could the Red Army possibly survive it?